Hey guys, today I am really excited to be doing my May wrap-up. I think I read a total of 7 books this month, and I'm just gonna get right into it. The first book that I read this month, which technically wasn't this month, I finished it April 30th, but I'm just gonna include it in this video anyway, was Cuckoo's Calling by J.K. Rowling. It's under the pseudonym Robert Galbraith, and this is the first in her Cormoran Strike series. They're adult mystery novels, and the first one takes place with a young woman who's been found dead, and Strike, who's the main character slash private detective, goes about finding who was the murderer. So that's the barest, briefest of descriptions I can give you of this book. Overall, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I have a review that goes further into detail about why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but it was more of a personal issue. I just wasn't used to the style of the mystery novel. It really is just a lot of witness and suspect interviews with Strike, and he gains a lot of information from these interviews, but I really don't pick up on anything special, so that's why I was just really clueless until the end, and it was more of my impatience that kept me from fully enjoying the book. It wasn't a bad book by any means, but it was just something I wasn't used to. The next book that I read this month was P.S. I Still Love You. This is the second book. The first one was To All the Boys I've Loved Before, so it follows, I guess, pretty much right after the first book ends. It had been a really long time since I read the first book. Luckily, the author did a really good job bringing back points from the first book so that I wasn't completely clueless, but overall I still gave this book a 2.75 out of 5 stars, and my reasons were just it didn't really strike me as interesting. The drama wasn't something that really held my attention, and I was just really confused by her choices, especially at the end. It just was a surprise, and not in a way that I like to be surprised. It just seemed unrealistic, and I just wasn't expecting that to happen. The main character seemed to me immature at times, and I know that she is like a high school student, and so she is younger than myself, but I give a lot of credit to high schoolers and young adults, and she just felt immature to me. I know a lot of people really love these books, and if you loved the first one, go ahead and give this one a shot, but I didn't really love the first one in the first place, so I'm not too surprised that I wasn't too sold on the second book. The next I'm going to talk about is actually a series that I read start to finish this month, and that is the Winner's Trilogy by Marie Kofsky. This series is incredible. 5 out of 5 stars. It is such a great world building that the author does with this whole series. I'm not going to be able to describe this series as a whole necessarily. I can only really describe the first book because I don't want to give away spoilers for the first book, and then they all, follow after the first book in the series. But let me give you the briefest synopsis. Kestrel is the daughter of a general in an empire where war is king. So the Valorian Empire, years prior to this book starting, had overtaken the Harani Empire, and the Harani people, instead of being killed or imprisoned outright, were instead made to be Valorian slaves. So the briefest thing I can tell you, the main character Kestrel buys a Harani slave, Aaron, at the start of the novel, and the world as they know it is pretty much changed because of it. I can't tell you much more about that, but it is so good. This series completely tortured me, but it was something that I loved. Like, I loved how it tortured me. I was so completely invested in the characters and the storyline, and I have 3 separate videos of my individual thoughts on each book full of spoilers. It's just a crazy discussion where I'm just excited about everything that's happening. If you're interested in watching them, I'll leave the links down below in the description. Also this month I read Scarlet, which is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles book series, with Cinder being the first book. Now, I first read Cinder a very long time ago, so it was a little difficult for me to get into Scarlet, but luckily the author did a really great job of bringing back the main points of Cinder, so I wasn't completely clueless. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, and it's not because it was a bad story. It was a really wonderful story. It's because I just didn't really feel anything for the characters. If I don't feel something for the characters, it doesn't really matter how great the plot is, which is so unfortunate. I just have such a hard time enjoying the book. It does follow immediately after Cinder, so I don't want to give any spoilers for those who haven't read the first book in the series, but it does a good job picking up Cinder's plot along with adding a new character and her plot intertwining with Cinder's, and that is the character of Scarlet, who is the little Red Riding Hood. That's her fairy tale. And the final book that I read this month was the Silkworm, which is the second in the Cormoran Strike series by J.K. Rowling / pseudonym name Robert Galbraith. This book I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it a lot more because I kind kind of knew what I was going into. I knew that Strike was going to do these character interviews pretty much all throughout the book, and instead of being disgruntled and getting impatient by that, I made notes in my phone so I could go back and hopefully try to piece things together. So the case that Strike has to solve in this novel is to find Owen Quinn, who is an author who recently went missing once a new manuscript for his book was released to the publishing industry. And this book had a lot of dirt on a lot of people in the publishing industry. So it really was a twisted, interesting kind of book to read. I did enjoy it. I had so many crazy theories and pretty much all of them were wrong, but I was still on to some clues. I still picked up on some things. Hopefully by the end of this series, I'll just be a pro and I will be like Strike. That would be my goal, just to be Strike. If you'd be interested in seeing me do a full review discussion of The Silkworm, the second book, please let me know in the comments and I will be happy to do so. Those are all the books that I read this month of May. For me, it was a very good month for reading. I recently just got back into the swing of things and I have been absolutely loving it. So what were some of your favorite books that you read this month? Thank you so much for watching and happy reading.